Hey guys, welcome back to Clock Country. I'm Andrew. We're here in beautiful Tokyo, Japan, although it's summer. So it's pretty hot and humid out, and it's a great day to stay inside. I'm going to show you guys how I scan and edit my film photos. So let's check it out. Let's just talk about equipment real quick. I use the Epson GTX830, also known as the V600 in the States and maybe outside of Asia. It's a pretty famous film scanner, probably because a lot of people don't really like it that much. It's not the most desirable scanner, but for me, I'm mostly just posting to Instagram or my website, and it does the job. If I were to do a book or something or make a zine, I will probably have my film scanned professionally. But still, for Instagram, it does a fine job, and you'll see that we're actually, when we scan with the software that we use here and with the scanner, we're kind of going overkill. That's what we're using for hardware. And then I use the program Silverfast. If you have an Epson V600, you can get Silverfast for free with the serial number on the back. So I went ahead and downloaded that. I found that the colors were better out of Silverfast, so I kind of just stuck with that. I know a lot of people use Negative Lab Pro, which I tried and it was fine, but I guess I had already kind of established a workflow with Silverfast. So yeah, I'm going to show you how I do that. Let's go ahead and dive in. So let's see, we're going to start up Silverfast 8. I think this is the newest update. The Epson's on. I'm ready to go. I've actually already put my scans in the scanner, and today we will be scanning some medium format 6x9 from actually my last photo walk, and there's a video of that, and I'll put the link somewhere up here. So of course, when you are scanning, the first thing you want to do is load the film into the film holder. I use the normal kind of Epson ones. They are not that great. They don't hold the film that flat, and if you have very severely curved film, it can cause some problems. You can kind of get some warping towards the edges, and you can get Newton rings where the film actually is touching the scanner glass and making it looks like a moire effect or something. And I've only gotten them once though. I've only gotten them once with really badly or very expired film. It was so curved, it was like very hard to put it in. So I've got my scans loaded up in the holder, and I am going to put it in the scanning bed, and you align it with the medium format. You align it on the B, and then I always kind of make sure it's flat already. And I use the little, there's like a little credit card kind of plastic insert. I usually use that even if the film is really flat. And then I go along the edge of the frame that holds it down, this like removable frame, and I make sure that it's really locked in. And I make sure that the scan holder is actually aligned really well in there. And then close the lid. So now we'll go into our software. I've got Silverfast loaded up, And all my settings are already kind of adjusted because this is the last roll of film that I scanned. So, but I'll just go through them really quick. I scan in TIFF, I make sure it's on transparency instead of reflective. I do 48 to 24 bit, and let's see. I also make folders, and I kind of archive my folders in a certain way, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Photo quality, I'm going to put it at 300 ppi, and then I'm going to put the resolution at 3200 ppi. If you go any higher than this, it doesn't matter at all, and you'll just get huge file sizes, which is not that great. First, let's pre-scan. So if you scan your own film at home, you know that this process is a very lengthy process, but you do have somewhat greater control over what you are going to get out of their scans compared to just dropping it off at the lab. The lab that I get my photos developed at, it's great, but it's just like our photo lab. Their scans are very low resolution. They're nice, but they're very low resolution, so I kind of prefer this method to that. So anyways, you can see my scans have popped up, and the one we're going to focus on is this one here, and we'll look at both of them. So something about Silverfast, the interface is very old school. It's very bare bones. Well, it's not bare bones. You can see there's so much information here. There's so many options, which can be a little bit overwhelming, but I have a very simple workflow, so I'll show you that. So anyways, after I pre-scan, I kind of look over the images, and sometimes you won't have, let's say your these like boxes might be set back to like 35 millimeter. So you will need to adjust these manually, especially if you're doing 6:9, and you just drag them. You just drag them and center it over it. And I usually center it over the whole thing plus a little bit of black on the edges, so I can crop it, because I'm always cropping my images a little bit mostly for getting the rotation correct. And you'll see, like, when you're moving this cursor around, it is always adjusting the exposure. It's auto adjusting the exposure and also like the tint. So you want to make sure, something about Silverfast, you want to make sure that you move this box. Like if you start scanning a new set of negatives, you need to at least like move this box in some way so it analyzes the image, because if you don't, it will scan it as is, and you can get some bad color casts and underexposed or overexposed scans. We're gonna go into the Negafix, which is their kind of like Negative Lab Pro. And you can choose, like they've gone through and had their scientists do all the work to figure out the correct color science for all these film types, and you know, it actually works very well, I think. So we're shooting Fuji, the film type is Pro, and the ISO is 400 or H400 for 400H. And I watched the Silverfast video, which is very boring, maybe even more boring than this one. I was informed that 6x6 is for 120 size film. So you can actually see if I change it, it has a little bit different tone. I don't know, yeah, it's different. So anyways, I'm gonna set it to that. I'm not gonna mess with the exposure or the tolerance. I do all that in post. I'm not gonna mess with the histogram. As you can see, it's very dark, but that's how I kind of wanted to shoot these images. I'm not gonna adjust this at all. I'm gonna wait until I get into Lightroom. Next thing I do with all my scans is I put the USM on, which is the show unsharp masking dialog, which is this, and it's going to do some sharpening. This really helps, especially for when you're posting on Instagram. Otherwise it can be kind of unsharp, and the scanner is not very sharp, so it's helping a lot. So I leave that on, and then I turn on the ISRD dust and scratch removal. This actually works very well with the infrared kind of scanning technology of the GTX 830 or V600. It saves me a lot of time. I didn't used to use this, and I used to spend so much time like repairing dust in my images, and it wasn't worth it. And this, you know, like if you were printing professionally or really large, maybe you would want to do this in a different method, but for my purposes it works very well. And now I'm gonna go to batch scan because I'm gonna scan both of these images. So batch scan's gonna bring up this kind of your finder, or I don't know, folder saving thing. And how I catalog my images is I would make a new folder. I'm going to type 03 and I'm going to title it Fuji 400H, and 03 is for how many, so all my folders are going to be split by camera. So this is in like photos 2021 02, so halfway through 2021 I archive all my folders, put them on a solid state drive or something, and then I start over with the second half of the year because I take lots of photos and it's a lot of data, and then I categorize the folders by camera type, and then I'll just do by roll. So the first roll was Fuji, the second roll is Fuji, and the third roll will be Fuji, and that kind of keeps my stuff in order. And then I'll make sure it's going into that folder, and I'll hit scan, and this takes forever, so let's go for it. So it's gonna start its scan, and I'll come back when it's done. Boom, we're back. Scans are finished. They took this much time, so 10 minutes, 25 seconds, about there. If you're gonna scan this whole roll, it's gonna be 40 minutes, 50 minutes, I mean probably an hour, honestly. So anyways, yeah, let's jump back in and let's take a look at what we got. So the scan we're gonna be focusing on is this one, and let's rotate it out here. If you rotate it in the desktop, it helps with Lightroom. And yeah, looking pretty good. Takes a few seconds for my MacBook to process these. These are huge files for photos, about 200 megabytes. So yeah, this looks pretty good. I'm happy with this here, so I am going to import it into Lightroom and get started over there. We've got this loaded up. We're getting ready to go. So I'm gonna go into my develop thing, and yeah, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to resize this photo from original to 2x3 or 4x6. That way it's consistent with what I'm doing on Instagram, and I'm going to cut off the black borders. Goodbye, I don't need them. And then I always usually align the photo, and like if for instance I see this window frame here, I'm going to align it to that. Looks good. It's just a tiny bit off, and then I'm going to make sure the black frame is out of it. Bring it down, boom. Looks good, looking great. The other thing I do first off, a lot of times when I'm loading photos in and kind of getting ready to edit, is I'll take this eyedropper tool right here for white balance, and I will take something that is neutral and a neutral kind of gray, and try to kind of adjust the white balance and the tint off of that. So like for instance, if I wanted to do it from here, we turn it super gold. I don't like that very much. Or maybe this line, not really. And how about back over here? Nope, that's not it. You know, you just kind of play with it, figure out what you want. I don't really like any of these, so I'm going to go off this gray building back here. And I actually kind of liked it better when the scan it was in, because it had a lot more blue, and especially in this background up here. I love the color that's coming off of this background up here. So I'm going to leave it like this and go from here. The other thing I do is a lot of times is I'll lower my highlights down a little bit. That's something about night photos, and if you watch the other video, you saw that I only did like 4-second exposures on an f8 image, and this was the same. This was taken like a f8 for 4 seconds. I don't like blowing out like my night scenes. It's dark out. I want it to look a little bit dark. That said, I'm very happy that the Fujifilm 400H came through, and it can pick up those kind of really dark background colors quite well. You'll see if you actually scan in that they're pretty noisy, especially if you bring up this, like you can see the noise in here and stuff, but I'm actually pretty impressed. It looks pretty good. So anyhow, I'm going to bring down my highlights a little bit. I'm going to bring up my shadows a little bit. I'm going to come down here. A lot of times if you see some of my images on Instagram with sky in the background, I'm playing with the dehaze a little bit. I'll even kick it in a little bit here, but not too much. Vibrance and saturation look good, but maybe bump it up just a little bit. Come down here and let me look at this curve. I can see if I want to move it down just a little bit, maybe up. Actually, up looks kind of nice, punch, a little bit more punchy. And then come back down here, and let's see if there's anything I want to change in the colors. So far so good. I do like that blue background, but we could go this way or this way. I like a little bit more purple, kind of to play off the gold in the image. And then the yellow, like I want this 20 to pop a little bit more, so I'm gonna try to bring the yellows in here a little bit orange, not too much. Got a lot of orange going on, and I'm gonna try to pop up this yellow in the saturation, but not too much. I really don't want it to affect the lights too much, and I don't want to affect the soba building too much. But we could do a little bit more. And we could do a little bit more to the orange side, and you'll see I'm going to do something a little bit different to kind of highlight the 20 on the ground. Okay, going into the color grading stuff, which is kind of new to Lightroom. I might play with it. I might play with these kind of high, this is actually the midtones. Play with it a little bit, make it a little orange. How about the shadows? Let's see what this does. Yeah, I mean, this really changes kind of what we are already doing with the HSL sliders. Let's leave it there. And highlights, I'm just going to leave for right now. Sharpening, I'm not going to touch. Noise reduction, I don't usually mess with it too much. It really de-sharpens an image. I mean, I could play with it a little bit and see how it works back here. I mean, you can kind of see what we can get out of this thing. Put the detail. Ooh, it's hard on the computer. Put the detail down, put the detail up. Oh, I mean, honestly, this image is so big, it doesn't matter to me. Yeah, let's just knock it back to normal. Anyways, and then we're gonna go to all of these other options. We're not gonna mess with anything. But what I am gonna do is I am going to put a little gradient in here. So I'll show you what I mean by that. I'm gonna draw a little gradient down here because I want to highlight this speed marking on the ground. I'm gonna bring it down here, and sorry, my fan is winding up a little bit. I'm gonna bring this down, and what I want to do is what I'm trying to do is highlight the 20. So I'm gonna bring down just the exposure a little bit. I'm gonna stretch this up a little bit more. I'm gonna bring up the contrast and actually bump this back up. And let's see, highlights. Let's go up on highlights, down on shadows a little bit. Not too much, because I don't want it to be, you know, this kind of stuff you don't want it to look really obvious, or else it just looks silly. Okay, I'm gonna say done with that one. I like how this looks, but I am gonna adjust this gradient a little bit. I'm gonna have it come this way a little bit more, and I'm gonna knock off some of how strong it is, because like I said again, I'm gonna pull this down. I don't want it to come and be, I don't want it to be really noticeable. And yeah, that looks good though. I am gonna go back in here and I'm gonna bump up this yellow saturation a little bit more. I do want that 20 to pop a little bit more. Not too much though, a little bit with the luminance. And I'm gonna actually go into my kind of global contrast, like the whole image, and bump it just a little bit, not too much. And going back to the white balance again, actually we're not gonna use white balance to get rid of this. This area of the image in here is a little bit too bright for me, or too orangey. So let's see if we can knock down some of the orange a little bit. Yeah, I kind of like that a little bit better. And maybe knock this mid-tone back down. We don't really need to use the grading on this image because I think it's quite, the colors are really good, like just kind of in general. The image quality, like I said from the beginning, it's really great just off the bat. For me, I just want to get a little bit more punch, and I want it to look like a photo of mine. So that's why I'm working in this way. Anyways, yeah, so I'm gonna actually leave it. And I think one of the best things you can do when you're editing anything like photos or video or even making a painting is get up for a few minutes or 15 minutes, leave it alone, and come back to it. Look at it later, see how it looks, see if it kind of conveys the mood that you're going for, that it's the kind of image that you want. Like already I'm seeing that I kind of want to adjust the orientation a little bit. It looks a little bit crooked to me. That looks better. But I can only see that if I go away from it for a little while. Anyways, thanks again for joining me on this video, watching how I scan and then edit my film images. If you have any questions or comments or suggestions, please, put them in the comments below. And if you like this kind of content, if you enjoyed this video, then think about subscribing. Otherwise, I will see you next time. This is Clock Country. I'm Andrew, and peace out. Bye bye.